In this fifth part, we're going to be looking at the home page. So let's double click that. And what we're going to do is to split it up into 4 areas. So we want a main headline text here on the left, an image on the right, some latest news in the bottom left, and just sort of a why choose us kind of text in the bottom right. So let's get started. I'm just going to zoom in and pull up an HTML text frame tool from the toolbar, and I'm just going to add some text. I'm just going to change the font to Georgia. Now before I do that, I'm just going to explain something. When you look at your font list, you'll have literally hundreds of fonts, and there's always a want to use the most funkiest or the nicest or the most outlandish one, but the problem is these fonts won't be available on every computer that's looking at your website. And so if, for example, you chose Aristocrat SF, you'll be able to see it. Anyone else who has that font installed will be able to see it. But if a visitor doesn't have that font installed, the browser would automatically try to find the next closest match, and that may be something that looks completely different. So what you have instead, if you scroll to the top, you'll come across this set called the WebSafe font set. These are basically fonts that are available in virtually every single computer, whether it's a PC, a Mac, running Windows, running Linux. And so if you use these, you'll be quite safe, and you know that what you're seeing is what your visitors will see as well. If you want to use a font that's not web safe, instead of using an HTML text frame, you can use a creative text frame. But what that will do is turn the font into an image when you publish the site. And although it will look the same on every computer, it won't actually be indexable by search engines, so they won't be able to read it. So you have to make a decision as to whether you want it to look good or whether you want it to be readable by a search engine. And depending on what you're using the text for, you'll go with one of those two methods. Okay, so I'm going to choose Georgia, and I'm going to make it font size 30. I'm just going to resize it just a bit. Cool. I'm just going to add another text box beneath that, and just add some more text. This time I'm just going to copy it from Notepad, and I'm just going to widen it a bit. Okay. Next thing I want to do is, once I've got the main text, I've got a little bit of a description, I want to put in a button that will guide people to whatever page has more details about the product I'm selling, the service I'm selling, or the one most important thing that I want people to do. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the toolbar and the insert button. And this time I'm actually going to design a button from scratch. And I want it to be a sort of a metallic looking button that will have a normal state, a state when you hover over it, and a down state, so when you click on it. So I'm just going to go to the edit the button in Design Studio, and this is pretty much the same as when we created our menu in the first episode. I'm just going to go and click on the background, and once I add a background here, it will be the same for all of these states. I'm just going to add a quick shape rectangle, about there, and using the nodes I'm just going to give it a rounded shape. So this way is inverse and that way is rounded. I'm just going to make it all the way rounded, and I'm going to apply a metallic effect. So from the right side, styles will be default selected, so I'm just going to choose the Metallico one. It's important to note that whatever is outside the page or the button area will get cut off, so aim for everything to be within that area and you should be fine. So I'm just going to make some changes to it. I'm just going to right click, filter effect. Now I don't want the drop shadow, so that will get rid of that problem, and it will give it a nice sharp clean edge. I want an outer glow of black, and this is just to take away some of that sharpness but not too much, and I want it to just be about 1 pixel, and black is fine, and 3D effects is on, and I just want to change the blur and the depth a bit. Again, you can do whatever feels good and looks right to you. You don't have to use these settings, and I'm just going to change the reflection map. And these are just settings that I played about with and I thought they looked nice, but you can again just go with whatever you want. And if it looks a little too much like it's got too much depth, you can just change it again. I'm just going to change that down just a little bit. Okay, and I'm just going to click OK, and that's our sort of metallic button. So I'm just going to go to the normal state, and I'm just going to change down, reduce the font size. So if you select the text, and if you change the boundary nodes, then that will change the size of the text and the position. So I'm just going to move it about there, and that looks good. I'm just going to make it instead of black, a grey color. Something like that is fine. It's almost like a green grey, but that looks good. And I'm going to change the hover, and to change the hover I just want it to be slightly different, not too much, just so that people get an indication that they've put their mouse over it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the background, and I'm going to copy it, and because it's not completely solid, it has a slight transparency to it, I'm just going to paste that over, and that just darkens it just a little bit more. And I'm now also just going to go to the down, and for here again I'm just going to paste that initial background. I'm using Ctrl-Alt-V, which is paste in place, and I'm just going to change the text. This time when I change the text, I don't want it to change for all of the state, so I'm just going to go to the menu toolbar and unselect change all text. Now whatever change I make will just only apply to this state. I'm going to change the color to blue, and that's my button. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that looks quite nice. So I'm just going to commit changes. I'm just going to change the button label to more info, and I want to set a hyperlink. So action hyperlink is fine, edit, site page, and I want it to go to the about page. Just going to click OK and OK, and just paste the button. You can just resize it to whatever looks good on your page. So about there is fine, and I want it to be around there. Cool. So the next thing I want to do is to just add an image to the right side. So I'm just going to go to Insert, Picture, and Web Art. And WebPlus X5 comes with a lot of sample images that you can use in your projects. I'm just going to go to Art, and I'm just going to choose this one. I'm not entirely sure what it means, but it just seems quite abstract and conceptual, so I'll just go with that. I'm just going to paste it on the page and just resize it so that it just fits perfectly here. Okay, and that looks fine to me. I'm just going to make it just slightly smaller, and what I'm going to do is give it a line of about 3 pixels, and I'm going to make the color almost like very dark or light black, if you will, just so that it's nicely boxed in. Just going to move this button down just a little bit so that it's more in level with the picture. I don't want it to be completely in line, so don't worry if the frames go off the page, that's fine. And I'm just going to preview that, and there's our headline text. It's nice and attention grabbing and just a little bit more detailed in that line, the image on the right, and our button towards the left. Now if we just look at the button, that's in the normal state, and if I roll my mouse over it, you can see that it changes ever so slightly, just to indicate that the mouse has rolled over it. And if I click on it, you'll notice that the font changes to blue and then takes us to the next page. Okay, so that's great. Now I'm going to continue to add some text to the bottom left. So I'm just going to get an HTML text frame, just paste it there, and add some text. I'm just going to zoom in. Okay, I'm just going to add an image. I'm just going to resize it right down and just put it there. I'm just going to copy this frame by holding down Control and dragging away. And I'm just going to resize this so it's the same width as the descriptive text above. And you can see that the dynamic line helps me get the right width. I'm just going to widen it as well. And I'm just going to change the font size to 9. I'm just going to insert some placeholder text for now. So that's insert, fill with placeholder text. And I'm just going to add one more line that will just simply say more. And I want this to be a hyperlink, so I'm just going to highlight it, Control and K, or right click hyperlink, site page, and just make it the about page. And this time I'm going to use, for the under other properties for the style, to use the site formatting. So whatever formatting we've set for hyperlinks, that's what it will use now. I'm just going to click OK, and you can see it's made it a blue color with underlined, and we can change what colors we want for our hyperlinks by going to File, Site Properties, and on page you've got the hyperlink colors. So that looks good, blue for the hyperlink, and for the followed hyperlink I want something different. I'm just going to go for almost a lighter blue or darker blue, and I want the active one just to be quite bright, so I'm going to go with magenta. Same with the rollover, and I think that's about it. Okay, so that's fine, so I just click OK. I'm just going to increase the height of that image just so that it fits. I want to add a few more of those, so I'm just going to select everything, hold down the Control key, hold down Shift so that it's going directly beneath, and then now I've got a copy. And I'm going to do that one more time, so hold down Control, hold down Shift, just move it. And I'm just going to change the image. You can see that because it's sized, it will no longer go to its original size, it will quite nicely fit in there. Just going to do that for the final one. Let's see that one. Great, and so that's our latest news area done, and I'm just going to preview that. Okay, and that looks really nice. You can see as we hover over the hyperlinks, they go to that magenta color. Okay, so I'm just going to add the final bit of text to the right. I'm just going to copy this latest news headline text. I'm just going to hold down Control and just drag away, and that will make a duplicate. Again, just to make sure that I don't stray off the vertical axis, I'm just going to hold down Shift. I'm just going to move it so that it's directly underneath that picture. I'm just going to change it to Why Choose Us. And again, I'm just going to copy this text, again holding down Control and just moving it away. Just going to widen it and just make it in line with that text box. Okay, I'm just going to insert some more placeholder text. Great. It's important to make sure that the text on your home page isn't too blocky, so there's not a lot of it in one place. I'm just going to break that up. I'm just going to delete some of it. Okay, I'm just going to make this one justify so that it's nice and square. In fact, I'll do it with these ones as well. Okay, and I'm just going to preview that. And that's our home page complete. And in fact, that's pretty much our website complete. So now you've got a website that's got a home page, it's got an about page, and it's got a contact page as well. Okay. Now I think that's a really good starting point, and what we'll do in upcoming tutorials is that we'll change some of these things for more advanced things. So for example, we'll change this picture, and instead of it just being a static picture, we'll put in one of the built-in galleries, and then we'll put in a third-party gallery, something like the Nevo slider, where you can have some really nice effects and going to links. Now one thing that's important, and why I've deliberately kept it quite simple, is that your homepage should really load quite quickly, and the more complex elements that you put on the page, the bigger the page weight. So the page weight is how much the page takes up in terms of kilobyte size, and the bigger that page weight, the longer it will take to get over the internet, even if you're on a broadband connection. And I always think that the page weight of your home page should be less than 300k. If it's more than that, it will start to take more and more time, even if you're using broadband. If it's less than that, it will pop up quite snappily, and that's quite important. To see the page weight size, you can just right click any page and go to estimate download time, and it will tell you the page, the number of files, and the total page size. And in this case it's 138 kilobytes, and that pretty much means it's going to come up quite quickly once I publish it. If you're on broadband, you're talking about less than a second. On dial-up, it's going to probably take about 20 seconds, but hopefully less and less people are using dial-up, so that won't be too much of a problem. But again, 300 is what you should be aiming for, 300 or less. If you can, 200 or 50 is better. Now, one thing that's quite deceptive about this is that if you're installing third-party components, additional galleries, additional light boxes, that total size won't reflect those other objects because they may be stored elsewhere, and so WebPlus can't know what their size is. So it's very prudent to know what those image sizes are for those external resources, and then what the page size is. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, okay, so that's our website done. I'll put it in the iPlus360 store. I'll put a link at the bottom, and you can download that. That'll be completely free. You can download it, you can play about with it. And in the next tutorial, we'll be looking at things that you should be doing to make sure that your website appears nicely on the internet. So making sure that you put in your SEOs, make sure that you've got your Google Analytics installed, make sure that you've created a webmaster account, you've got site properties and page properties set up so that you appear properly in search results when you do. And then tutorials after that will be looking at how to really take your website to the next level, and to make sure that not only does it look good, but it also does what you want it to do, i.e. get visitors, get people to buy things as well. And we'll look at some more advanced features. So do join me for those tutorials. And the next one will be in 1 to 2 days time. If you like this one, please rate, comment and subscribe.